Meantime, the UN's given the go-ahead for an investigation into Syria's bloody crackdown on protesters and demanding the immediate release of political prisoners. The Human Rights Council also wants restrictions on journalists and the internet lifted. Barbara Slavin is an expert on US foreign policy. She joins us live from Washington now to discuss these latest developments. Barbara, very good evening to you. Thanks for being on RT. Syria has previously refused calls for an international investigation, hasn't it, saying it's capable of conducting its own. Are we likely to see any change now in its position after the UN's decision, do you think?
I doubt it. At this point, I think the Security Council has still yet to act, and the Human Rights Council, of course, is not such a strong body. I'm afraid we're going to see more of a crackdown in Syria.
Well, the Obama administration says it is likely to hit top Syrian officials with sanctions over the brutality that's been dealt out to the protesters. While I'm speaking, these are the latest pictures we got through, just pointing out to our viewers. Iran's Revolutionary Guard 2 is also set to be penalised, we hear, for allegedly providing material support for the Syrian regime. Is the US, do you think, gradually switching its attention from Damascus to Tehran?
No, I mean, I know that the U.S. has said that Iran is involved in helping the Syrians and so on, but, I think that this is very much fundamentally still an internal Syrian matter. We are going to see whether the numbers of people that have come out on the streets will continue to come out, whether more will come out. Bashar al-Assad is not his father. This is not 1982. I think at some point he is going to have to make some concessions to get these protests to stop, or he's going to have to step down. And I don't think the Iranians, frankly, with all the problems they have in their own country, are going to be able to salvage this regime. My sense is that if I know the Iranians, and I think I do, they are already reaching out to other players in Syria, most likely some of the Islamic groups, others, because for them it's important to have a relationship with a country which is on the confrontation line with Israel.
Mm-hmm. And what about how the EU is dealing with all this, and other countries in the West? A set of decisions to penalise Syria are likely to come into effect Friday. The EU is looking into imposing sanctions as well. Does it mean that the West is maybe considering diplomatic, not military means to deal with any future uprising in Syria if this continues? Or is this just a pretext for further action, do you think?
No, I think this is very much diplomatic, economic means, not military means. No one in his right mind would intervene militarily in Syria. What we've seen is colossal ambivalence on the part of the United States, Europe, really all of Syria's neighbors, because nobody knows what would come after the Assad family dictatorship after 40 years in power, if that's to implode. There are tremendous fears of civil strife of the sort that we've seen in Iraq and in Lebanon because of the divided sectarian nature of the country. The most hopeful scenario, frankly, is that these sanctions, other measures, will convince the Assad regime to make reforms, to open up, to allow real elections to take place, because the longer this goes on, I think the more violent it becomes.
Well, tonight as well, President Assad facing another opponent. The outlawed Muslim Brotherhood movements today urge Syrians, isn't it, to unite against him and join protesters on the streets. How significant is their backing for the demonstrators now?
It's significant, but again, the Muslim Brotherhood of 2011 is not the Muslim Brotherhood of 1982, when Hafiz al-Assad crushed them in Hama and killed 20,000 people. This appears to be a very broad-based movement, the sort of thing we've seen, frankly, in Tunisia, in Egypt, in Libya, excuse me, throughout the Middle East. This is young people, this is Islamicists, this is people without jobs, people who want some kind of democratic freedom, some sort of ability to control their lives.
But if a hardline radical Islamist group got into power there, what would America do? Would its thirst for the region's oil outweigh its current strong friendship with Israel?
Well, again, it's really premature to speak about what would happen. Obviously, Sunni Muslims would have a bigger say because they're a majority in Syria, and they're being run by a minority regime. But if you add up all the various groups and so on, there's probably an equilibrium between Alawites, Christians, Druze, and Sunnis. You have secular people, you have people who are not particularly religious. As I said, the most hopeful scenario is something that really is more democratic. I think that would be best. The longer it goes on, the more violence you see, the more extremism you see, and the more it actually helps groups like the Muslim Brotherhood.
Barbara, you're the expert in this. How important geopolitically is Syria in that whole region?
Oh my God, it's so important. That's why Iran has had an alliance with it since the 1980s. It is the most important state that is still in confrontation with Israel. It has tremendous influence still in Lebanon, of course, as we've seen. It's the conduit between Iran and Hezbollah. It enables Iran to play in the Arab-Israeli conflict in a major way. It's a very important country. I believe the old phrase was that there was no no war without Egypt and no peace without Syria in terms of Arab-Israeli peace. So it's a tremendously important country. Of course, it has an influence as well on Iraq.
We're watching all the developments very closely. Barbara Slavin, expert on US foreign policy, joining us from Washington. Good to have your insight on the programme. Thank you.